What's going on, everybody? So recently my friend Peter started doing DoorDash, and he was asking me a bunch of questions recently since he was getting started. And after answering quite a few of his questions, I thought, I should just put this together in a video so that if he forgets, he can just go back and refer to the video so that he can remember the answer that I gave him. So in this video, I'm going to reveal the top 10 tips and tricks I learned while I was doing DoorDash. Now, I didn't do DoorDash for a very long time. I only did about 500 deliveries and did it for approximately 7 or 8 months. But it was enough time to learn quite a few things and learn a bunch of the tips and tricks that helped me become a more successful driver. So if you're ready to hear these tips, go ahead and leave a like and let's get into the video. Also, if there's any tips or tricks that you've learned that you feel like I've left out, go ahead and leave them in the comments so we can all learn from each other. Alright, so these tips are in no particular order except for tip number 1. This is the most important tip that I learned while I was doing DoorDash that got me the most success. So tip number 1 is text the customer with order updates. Imagine the customer was your friend and you were going to pick up food for them. They'd probably be texting you all the time, being like, hey, where's my pizza? Have you gotten it yet? Hey, what's going on? So if the customer had a friend going to pick up their food, they would probably bug them a lot more, but since they don't know you, they don't want to bug you. But the customer will appreciate it a lot if you give them order updates, and they'll most likely give you a better rating when you do this. So there's a way within the DoorDash app that you can contact the customer. Usually you'll look at the order and you'll click on contact, and it'll either say contact the merchant or contact the customer. Click on contact the customer and it'll create a temporary number that you can text the customer with and then deactivate it after the order is complete. So that way you don't have to worry about texting a customer and having them text you back at weird times. The number will disappear when it's done being used. So a word of caution with this tip is you don't want to burn yourself like I did in the beginning. So at the very beginning, I would get an order and I would go to the restaurant, and as soon as I arrived at the restaurant, I would text the customer, introduce myself, I'd say, hello, this is Zach, your DoorDash driver, and I just arrived at the restaurant and I'm waiting for them to complete your order. So the customers would be happy about that most of the time. And they would text me back and say, thank you for alerting me and letting me know that you're waiting for my order. And sometimes they would even say, can you ask them to add extra ketchup or give me extra syrup or different things like that. But the problem was is sometimes I would go to a place and the order would take so long that I would just be waiting there, and I would feel guilty not to leave the order because I had texted the customer and told them that I was already there. So what I started doing instead is that I would go to the restaurant, and once I picked up the order, then I would send the text. I would introduce myself, say, hey, this is Zach, I'm your DoorDash driver, I just picked up your order and now I'm headed to your address. So this still introduces you to the customer, gives them an update, and lets you know the order status. Because a lot of times on the app, they'll look at it and it'll just say food is on the way, and then when you pick it up, it'll say Zach is your driver and he's on the way. And sometimes it's not very clear and it's not very accurate. And so when you text the customer and say, hey, this is Zach, I'm on my way, I got your food, I'll be there in approximately 20 minutes. It makes them really happy because they know what's going on, they know who you are, and they know they can contact you if something comes up, and it makes it so you can get a lot better rating. So when I was doing DoorDash, they didn't have any way to really thank you except for maybe a tip or giving you a good rating, but I think they created something called like the above and beyond rating or something like that. And that way the customer can say, this DoorDash driver did really good and they did more than I was expecting, and that rating would help a lot. So if you do something like this, this is something that could really help your customer rating go up really well. Okay, so tip number 2 is to decide before you go into the restaurant how long that you're willing to wait for that order to be ready. And the reason I decided to do this was I would go to certain places, like Cheesecake Factory, for example, was one of my least favorite places to go to because I would go there and sometimes I would wait over an hour for the food to be ready. And that's just a whole bunch of wasted time that I could have been using delivering orders from other places, and that's lost time. So I decided that I was going to start deciding before I went in how long I would wait. And it was usually 10 minutes. I would go in and I would either look at the time or I would set a timer. And I would wait 10 minutes, and if the order was not ready by 10 minutes, I would drop the order, leave, and go wait for another order. And the other reason I did this was because there was one time where I was waiting for this scheduled order, And I went in, I waited for over an hour, and I saw multiple people come in for an order, and they would say, okay, I have an order for Jennifer, and then they'd wait, and they'd get fed up, and they'd cancel the order, and they'd leave. And then the waitress would come out and say, oh, I have an order for Jennifer, and we're like, oh, the person that had that one just left. Less than a minute later, another dasher would walk in and say, I have an order for Jennifer. They'd grab the food and they'd take off. So I don't feel bad at all dropping orders because I know somebody is going to walk in while the food is still hot, pick it up and go deliver it. So don't waste your time waiting for orders that aren't ready. Just drop them and leave. Now this may depend on the place where you go. Like there's some places where you have to wait a really long time. So like Applebee's, Chili's, Cheesecake Factory, those were places that I would have to wait ridiculously long wait times in order for the food to be ready. So Applebee's and Chili, I'd walk in, I'd ask them if the order was ready. If they said no, I'd walk right out and drop the order. Cheesecake Factory was almost the same way. I'd usually wait about 10 minutes. If it wasn't ready within 10 minutes, I'd leave. There's other places like Chipotle. If you walk into Chipotle and they say, oh, the order will be ready in a couple minutes, then I'd wait because Chipotle is usually ready really quick. So it depends on the place where you go and you'll kind of have to learn as you go, but make sure that you set a time before you walk in of how long you're willing to wait. Okay, so tip number 3, just a disclaimer, if you want a perfect, stellar DoorDash rating and all of the aspects of the rating, don't do this. Try to do everything super good that you want to have DoorDash be all your super good rating or whatever. As for me, the only rating I cared about was the customer rating. I wanted my customer rating to be as high or as close to perfect as possible because I wanted the customers to be happy with my service. All the other things for DoorDash, I didn't care about. The speed rating, the number of orders dropped, all that other stuff, I didn't care at all about that because that was all to make DoorDash happy. As long as the customer was happy with everything that I did, that's all I cared about. And the reason I say this is because sometimes you'll go and you'll wait an hour for food and then DoorDash will penalize you for being late for delivering the order when it wasn't even your fault. So that's not fair and I don't care what DoorDash thinks. So getting into this, make sure that you are super picky with the orders that you accept. If you go and you look at it, oh, this is a Cheesecake Factory order and it's only going to pay $5, but I have to drive 10 miles. No, I'm not accepting that. Or this is an ice cream order and it's 100 degrees outside and I know the ice cream is going to melt before I get there. The customer is going to give me a bad rating. No, I'm not accepting that. So be super picky with the orders that you choose. I usually try to choose an order that would pay me at least $1 per mile that I had to drive. And I would have to know that the order was going to be either ready when I got there or ready within 10 minutes. So I was extremely picky with what orders I got. And now my acceptance rating was super low because I would decline almost every order that I got. I would only accept the good ones. And so my acceptance rating was very low, but I didn't care. As long as my customer rating was high, that's all I cared about. But this will save you so much time and so much money in gas. Because when I first started, the first week, I accepted every order that DoorDash gave me, and I drove probably over 100 miles the first night and made way less than that. So I didn't think that was fair at all, and I know that supposedly the more experience you get and the more orders you accept from DoorDash, the better orders you start to get, but I didn't see that. So I started being super selective and only choosing the best orders. Tip number 4, try to accept orders that end near restaurants. So the reason I say this is because there are many times that I would pick up orders and it would either send me clear outside of my dashing area or it would send me to somewhere that lived way far out away from any other city area or any other restaurants or anything, and then I would lose a bunch of time trying to come back to a hotspot. So going along with the pickiness of how you accept your orders, once you get familiar with your area, look at that area and think, okay, what kind of restaurant is close by? Is this close by to a restaurant or is it not? Is it far away from a restaurant? And decide if you want to accept it or not. The other thing that I would do too is if the order was really far away but the customer tipped a lot, then that would make up for how far away the order was. So say the order was 15 miles away but the customer tipped a lot, so I would get paid $20 for the order. Okay, then it might be worth it. But if it wasn't that much and it would send me clear far away, then no, I would just decline that order. Okay, tip number 5. create your own hotspots. So now the reason I say this is because DoorDash has specific areas that they say are hotspots. And that's usually near some popular restaurants or a cluster of restaurants, things like that. Now the problem with these is if there's a lot of Dashers in your area, they're all going to those hotspots. And the problem with that is if you're not like right in front of the front door, somebody else is going to get selected when you go to a hotspot unless there's a lot of stuff going on, it's really busy and things like that. So you're going to have to kind of familiarize yourself with the areas and you'll find hidden hotspots. There were certain areas where I would go and there would be little restaurants that sometimes weren't considered very popular, but I would go over there and they were on fire. I would get tons of orders every time I was in that area because it was like a hidden hotspot. People didn't know as much about it, but they were still popular. DoorDash didn't really know it was a hotspot. So those are my favorite areas, finding hidden hotspots. Tip number 6. So this one is kind of up to your own discretion, but for me, I found that when I would try to do orders in big city areas, it would usually end up making me lose more time than anything. I would be driving around all over the place searching for parking, and then the order would be getting late and it would be hard to go and find in different places like that. And I've seen a lot of Dashers will just go park in random spots where they're not supposed to park in, get parking tickets, all this stuff. So I just avoided the big city areas. I would find popular areas on the outskirts of the big city, and that's where I would usually go. Try to find these places that actually have parking, that have good restaurants, that are pretty hot and poppin', things like that. And so I would try to go to these different places and avoid the big city or the downtown areas because I hated looking for parking and it was really difficult to get in and out and try to avoid traffic tickets and all that other stuff. So another thing going along with that I always like to think of is I always thought of myself as a getaway driver. So the reason I thought like this was a lot of times people would go and park right in front of the restaurant and then it would be hard for them to get out. They would stuck in the traffic trying to get out of the parking lot. And me, a lot of times I would park in the far corner of the parking lot, walk really fast through the parking lot, go in real quick, pick up my food, come back out, walk real fast through the parking lot, go and get in my car and be the first one to leave. And so this was a big advantage that I had a lot of times was I parked like a getaway driver. I always thought, okay, what's the fastest way I can get out of here so I can get on the road to deliver the food the fastest? And that way you don't get stuck in all the traffic and the congestion in the parking lot. So think like a getaway driver and try to find a good spot that will be most advantageous for you to get out of there as quick as possible. Tip number 7. So this is a 2-part tip, but they go together and I'll explain why. Tip number 7 is to get better warming bags. The reason I say this is because this is the DoorDash bag. It's good for some things, but it's small, it's flimsy, it's thin, and it works all right. Now, the reason I say get better bags is because I signed up for Grubhub. I got these bags for free, and they are way thicker and way better than the DoorDash bags. They're also way bigger, so you can fit way more food in there. The other cool thing is that if you fold it up right, so if you put it together right, it becomes a backpack, which is really cool. You can put it on like a backpack. Also, you can turn it flat and carry it like a pizza bag. So, if you have Grubhub in your area, sign up for Grubhub because you can get these bags for free. Even if you don't want to do Grubhub, you can sign up for Grubhub, get the bags, maybe do a few orders and stop doing it or stop using it that much, but look at the size and quality difference of these bags. Like there is a huge difference and the Grubhub bags are so much thicker. So you get this Grubhub bag, which is the smaller bag, and you also get this Grubhub bag, which is huge. So this is really good for places like Outback Steakhouse, Olive Garden, other places like that that give you gigantic bags to hold the food. Also, once again, if you turn this one sideways, it becomes a pizza carrying bag. And it's big enough to fit 5 extra large pizzas in it, maybe 6. The reason I know that is because I got an order that had 5 extra large pizzas in it, and they fit in here very nicely. I think I even have a picture on my phone of that order, and I'll find it and I'll put it in the video. So, now going along with this, get better warming bags. You might be able to find them on Amazon. You might be able to find them on eBay. But I got these Grubhub ones for free. And the DoorDash one that I got was really small, not very good, and it cost me $4. So, I mean, that's a pretty good deal that I got these ones for free. So get better warming bags. This is a huge thing because it will affect your customer rating tremendously. Customers will be super mad if you bring them something that's cold when it's supposed to be hot, or if you bring them something warm that's supposed to be cold. If you bring them sushi that has gotten warm, they might not even want to eat it because they might not feel safe anymore. So make sure that you get a good warming bag. And if you have seat heaters in your car, turn your seat heaters on, put the warming bag on top of the seat heater. That'll help keep the food warm. Now, going into using multiple apps. This is just a suggestion. You can do this if you want to. I tried it with DoorDash and Grubhub. I found out that Grubhub was very slow in my area. It would only give preference to the more experienced drivers. It would only give them the good orders and all that stuff. So I hardly ever did Grubhub. I mostly did DoorDash. But on the times when DoorDash was slow, I liked having both of them. Now, I went into a couple restaurants and I would always ask them the same thing. I would say, what are your most popular delivery apps that visit here? And the reason I signed up for Grubhub was because it seemed like it was number 2, but a very close number 3 was Uber Eats. So, in your area, when you go into restaurants, say, hey, I'm working for DoorDash, but I'm considering other apps as well. Which other ones are really busy in your restaurant? And when you find those other ones that are busy, make a tally or a survey or something and find the ones that are the most busy and start using multiple apps at the same time on the slow days. And that way you'll be able to always have orders coming in so that you'll be making money and not have to wait as long. Now, this is something that you can do if you'd like. You don't have to. I ended up not doing much for Grubhub because it was basically a waste of my time, so I just took the bags and used them for my DoorDash orders because DoorDash was the most busy in my area. So if you're not comfortable driving for multiple apps, you feel like it's too complicated, or you feel like this isn't a good use of your time, that's totally fine. Just find yourself some good warming bags. The ones for Grubhub were free, so that was probably the best deal I could find. And if you have Grubhub in your area, I would highly recommend that you sign up for Grubhub, if nothing else, for the warming bags, because they are way better than DoorDash. Now, it's been a long time since I've done DoorDash, so DoorDash may have updated their bags, they may have gotten better bags, but the Grubhub ones are free, so I like that. Okay, tip number 8. So, if I was you, and this is something that I did, and I'm glad that I found this out. I saw this in another YouTube video and it helped me out a lot. Use a separate bank account. Keep your personal stuff, your personal expenses, your main job paycheck, things like that. Keep them all in your one personal bank account, and open up a separate bank account for your side gig stuff, so that when you're getting your DoorDash paychecks, or you're buying things like warming bags or a cell phone holder for your car, different things like that, drink holders, whatever it needs or whatever it is, open up a separate bank account for your side hustles. And this will help you tremendously when it comes to tax time, because all of your business purchases will be in one place on one bank account, and all of your personal stuff will be in another account. So when you're trying to figure out all your tax stuff, this will help you so much. And if you have questions about taxes, I'll leave a link for my other video about taxes that you can watch and get some of my ideas that helped me when I was trying to figure out my taxes for DoorDash too. Now, preferably, you want to open up a free bank account, because if you're getting charged, then that's not necessarily a charge that you want, especially when you can open up a free bank account at somewhere like a credit union or something like that, which is what I used. I used my old credit union account that wasn't very active, but it was nice to keep my personal stuff in my Chase account and then use my credit account for all of my business stuff. If you do have to pay for your bank account, it could possibly be a tax deduction, but I'm not super sure because I'm not a tax professional, I'm not a financial advisor. If you do have specific questions about taxes for your specific situation, then you'll want to refer to a tax expert in your area. All right, so tip number 9, find the right time, the right days, and the right places to do your dashes. Otherwise, you're just going to end up wasting your time. So if you're new to this is going to take a little bit of time to kind of figure out what the best time, what the best days, where is the best places to do all this stuff. So for me, when I started out, I did it for 4 or 5 hours every day after work, and then on the weekends, pretty much all day, Saturday and Sunday. And that was to kind of figure out when the best times, what the best days and things were like that. So I found out that in my area, Tuesday and Wednesday were extremely slow, so I would usually end up making very little money those days. So I just cut out all of the time on those days. I stopped delivering on Tuesday and Wednesday because it was a waste of my gas and I wanted to save my gas for the busier days. I also found out that Friday was the busiest day of the week and it was usually the best day. Saturday and Sunday were hit and miss. Sometimes they were extremely good, other times they were a little bit slower, but they were still pretty good usually. But Friday night was definitely the best for me. Monday was also surprisingly good. So it's going to take some time for you to figure out what days are best, but also make sure that you go out during breakfast, lunch, or dinner rushes. If you go out during the midday, you're going to get some random ice cream orders here, some random drink orders here, and different stuff like that. But if you go during lunchtime, dinner time, and sometimes breakfast time, those are the best times to go. So don't waste your time going at the wrong time of day. Make sure that you go at the right time. And this may differ from area to area, so you'll find out which times are the best times, whether it's 11 to 2 or 11 to 1 or 12 to 4. Different areas might have different hours that are best. And this comes down to something called the 80-20 rule, which means you make 80% of your money usually during 20% of the time that you spend doing things. So if you can cut out wasted time on other stuff, you can focus on the higher profiting hours and the higher profiting days and the different things that make you the most money, and cut out time where you're losing money. Tip number 10, tax deductions. Deduct everything you possibly can. If you want to get a phone mount for your car, even if it's personal, you just want to get a phone mount, turn that into a business expense. Get it with your DoorDash bank account and show them that, okay, I need this for my business so that it's safe while I'm driving to have this phone mount. Business expense deduction. That's saving you money. Make sure that you get a mileage tracking app and track all your miles that you drive so you can deduct all of those miles from your taxes at the end of the year. And I talk about this in my tax video, so I won't go into too much detail here. So look through, find different deduction apps. The one that I used is called Stride Tax. I'll leave a link in the description. It worked pretty good. There were a couple times that it did some weird things, like it would jump and say that I went 200 miles away and then immediately came back. And that threw off my deductions and made it so that I had a 200-mile trip that took me 1 second. And so it did some kind of weird stuff, but I just kind of monitor it closely and make sure that I fixed everything. Another good one that I've heard of was Everlance, but I had heard that Stride was more accurate, so that's why I used it. Another one that I tried was QuickBooks Self-Employed, but it was terrible for tracking mileage, so I don't recommend that one. Unless you've had a good experience with it, then go ahead and use it. But with everything that you do related in some way to DoorDash, try to make it a tax deduction. So like I said, if you need a phone mount, if you want to go and buy some kind of a drink holder so that drinks won't fall over, which if I found orders that were primarily drinks or had a lot of drinks, I would usually decline them, because trying to keep drinks from spilling while you're driving like a madman, you're driving like the pizza delivery driver from Toy Story and all your drinks just keep falling over. Yeah, so I didn't like that, so I usually would decline these orders. But that was just me. I didn't like drink orders. I usually tried to get food orders. But anyways, if you want to get a cup holder or something like that, tax deduction. If you want to get some better warming bags, tax deduction. You want to get anything for your car that can help you in any way business related, tax deduction. Just make sure that it falls within the ordinary and necessary of your tax type stuff so that the IRS won't say, oh no, that doesn't count. But usually they only do that if you have an audit. And most likely, unless you're making hundreds of thousands of dollars with DoorDash, you're probably not going to get an audit, but don't quote me on that. But also, going along with all these tax deductions, make sure you record everything. Just in case you do have to prove it with taxes, you want to have documentation to prove it for everything. If you spend money to buy a warming bag, get a receipt. If you spend money for a cup holder, if you spend money on a phone mount, get a receipt. Make sure you record that. Hold it in a place where you can find it easily. That's why I say to use a separate bank account, so that you can say, okay, I bought this drink holder, I bought this warming bag, I bought this, I bought that, all for DoorDash. You have it all in a separate bank account. When you're doing your taxes, you don't have to search very far to find everything. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you found these tips and tricks helpful. Hopefully by going through and learning these and applying them into your dashing, you won't have to learn the hard way like I did, and you won't have to make the same mistakes that I did, and hopefully it'll help you. Please like and subscribe to the channel. If you found this video helpful, let me know in the comments. Also, if you want to see me do more videos about DoorDash, let me know. I haven't done many because I stopped doing DoorDash. I found that it wasn't quite worth my time. I was making some money and I ended up making a few $1,000s out of it, which was decent. But I felt like I was spending more than I needed to. And another thing to think about with DoorDash is it's more like owning a small business than having a regular employee type job, because you have to consider how much you're spending on gas. You have to take care of your own car. Do all these things that you have now as business expenses, whereas when you go to your normal job, you just go there, clock in, do your work, clock out, and that's all you have to worry about. So it's not really a good way to look at it and say, oh, I can make $30 an hour working for DoorDash, because in reality, you could make $20 or $30 an hour maybe if you get a lot of good orders. Other days you could make $5 an hour, depending on how many orders you get. But also you have to spend money on your car. You have to do all this other stuff that eats into your profits. So you can't really look at it as an hourly pay type job, because it's not the same. But now, that being said, there are people that have figured out the tricks and tips of DoorDash, and they make a lot of money doing it the right way. And if you can find their videos and look at their tips and tricks too, check those guys out, because they'll give you some really good hints and they'll help you make a lot of money. And so depending on your situation, it might be worth it, it might not. For me, it ended up not really being worth it, but it helped me accomplish what I was trying to do. I needed to get enough money to make a down payment so I could get braces, and I ended up being able to put down a couple $1,000s on my braces payment, so it ended up helping, but it was way more work than I thought it was worth. So that's why I stopped doing DoorDash. But if you guys would like to see more hints on DoorDash, different things about what I learned while I was doing DoorDash, or how I use the app, which I haven't used the app for a while, but I still have it so I can open it back up. I could even do a dash if necessary. But if you want to see anything like that, let me know, and I'll go through and see what other kind of knowledge or hints that I can provide. So once again, thanks for watching. Feel free to subscribe and like the video, and I'll see you in the next one.